far from the headlines about aircraft carriers and Marines. The most brutal constant fighting in the Pacific was done by the smallest ships. They were the destroyers, quick, tough, and perpetually on the edge of exhaustion. They hunted submarines, dueled with enemy barges, bombarded shores, and most importantly, guarded the precious carriers. But these ships, nicknamed tin cans for their thin armor, had a critical weakness. They wore out. Their story is tied not to a famous island, but to a hidden repair base that kept them in the fight. Espiritu Santo. In the Solomon Islands campaign of 1940–43, destroyers were run into the ground. Their crews existed on a diet of coffee, adrenaline, and fear. After weeks of constant combat, a ship would pull into the vast lagoon at Espiritu Santo, an island that was not a front line, but the rear area nerve center. The ship would be a wreck, paint scorched off by gun blasts, hull plates dented from near misses, engines shaking from thousands of miles of flank speed runs, and a crew hollow-eyed from endless watches. Here they found not rest, but the tender. A ship like the USS Dobbin or Whitney was a floating destroyer hotel and hospital. These tenders were mammoth repair ships, each a self-contained city of workshops. A destroyer would tie up alongside, and the tender's crew would swarm over it. The work was a 24-hour symphony of industrial repair. Machinists' mates would descend into the hot, oily hell of the engine rooms to pull apart overtaxed turbines. Ship fitters would cut away twisted radar masts and weld new ones. Electricians would rewire circuits fried by salt water and concussions. Up on deck, other crews would operate massive cranes to lift off the destroyer, spent 5-inch gun barrels worn out from firing thousands of shells, and hoist fresh, gleaming ones into place. At the same time, ammunition barges would pull up on the other side, and teams would begin the back-breaking, precise work of reloading the ship's magazines with shells and depth charges. For the destroyer's crew, these few days at Espiritu Santo were a paradoxical relief. They were still aboard, still on duty, but the immediate terror of battle was replaced by the deafening, constant racket of repair. They could finally sleep more than 2 hours, shower with fresh water, and watch a movie on the tender's deck. Most importantly, they could see their ship being made whole again. The smell of welding and fresh paint was the smell of hope. This base had one overarching rule: speed. The front was always hungry for more destroyers. A tender-assessed captain was judged by how fast he could turn a battered wreck back into a fighting ship. 72 hours was a long stay. Often it was less. Then, with a new coat of paint still drying on her hull, the destroyer would cast off her lines. Her engines, now tuned and smooth, would rumble to life. She would slide out of the protective lagoon, her crew rested, her magazines full, her guns aligned, heading back into the darkness of the slot towards Guadalcanal. Espiritu Santo never launched a major offensive. No famous battle was planned there. But it was here, in this unglamorous lagoon, that the endurance of the fleet was manufactured. The tender and its base were the pit stop in the longest, most grueling race in naval history. They understood a fundamental truth: courage and skill were meaningless if the ship itself fell apart. By healing these tin cans, again and again, they sustained the relentless pressure that strangled Japan's supply lines and protected America's great carriers. The story of victory in the Solomons is, in no small part, the story of the forgotten mechanics of Espiritu Santo, who met the broken ships and sent them back to sea, ready to fight another night.